Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 9, Assessing and Differentiating for Multilingual Learners. This week, we are covering a lot of content because both of these topics in isolation could be their own course. So we're going to be learning about a lot of different facets of both assessing multilingual learners and differentiating for multilingual learners. We're going to begin focusing on assessment. The 3 readings that you have for this week all focus on classroom assessment. And you're going to be reading chapters from Margot Gottlieb's book, Assessing English Language Learners, which is a great resource, and I highly recommend that you purchase the whole book because there's lots of great strategies and tools for supporting you and how to assess emergent bilingual students. But we'll be reading one chapter that helps you understand the distinction between assessing as learning, assessing for learning, and assessing of learning. And you'll be thinking about that distinction in your discussion post for this week as well. And then you'll have 2 chapters that get into assessing as learning and assessing for learning and some strategies for how to do that. Then we will transition to talking about differentiation strategies through a few different videos and mini lectures. So I'll share some of my own strategies and approaches that I found helpful for differentiating. You'll watch a brief video from 2 high school teachers when they talk about how they differentiate for multilingual students in their classroom. And I'll share a couple resources that are really helpful for differentiating texts, Newsela and Common Lit. Which if you're not familiar with, you have the links as well to explore and see how those resources might be useful for you. Then we move into differentiating with WIDA MPI strands. WIDA, as you know, has a wealth of resources for supporting teachers who are working with multilingual students. The WIDA MPI strands are part of their 2012 English language development framework, and they're essentially a differentiation tool. So they have strands at different grade levels and focus on different content areas, and they give you examples of what it would look like to differentiate for students at each of those levels, depending upon what the content is, or the domain, listening, speaking, reading, or writing, and the grade level. So I'll give you some examples of what that looks like in a mini lecture. I also have linked a video that talks about the stages of second language acquisition, in case it's been a while since you've learned that, just to refresh your memory of what it looks like for students to be at each of those different stages, and some resources that will help support your learning there. And that is it in terms of the content learning for this week. Then you move into discussing and applying. So the activity that we're going to do is a little bit different than what I had listed in the syllabus. I want you to be deconstructing an MPI strand. And so what you'll be doing essentially is choosing one MPI strand at the grade level you teach or in the content area that you teach, and you're just going to be deconstructing it. So I have some basic prompt questions that you're going to be responding to, identifying the different components of it, and then you'll be reflecting in your discussion post about how this tool could be useful for you as you differentiate for multilingual learners. There's a few other questions as well that you'll be responding to in the discussion post for this week. This week, I really want you to focus on finalizing your unit plan because it is due on Tuesday. This is an ungraded draft, but it is required that you submit it so that I can give you some feedback and see where you're at with your unit plan. So the expectation is that it's completed. It's okay if there's parts that are still drafty or you're still kind of figuring things out, but I do want to see a complete unit plan draft. And so we're focusing first on adding assessment and differentiation to your unit. And I've got some prompt questions for you at the end of at the end of this screen that you can see. And then you're also going to be creating one WIDA MPI strand for one of the content objectives in your unit plan. So essentially you're thinking, if I were to teach a lesson focused on one of the content objectives, how might I differentiate what students are being asked to do in one of the domains? So if you're focusing on reading, how might I differentiate what I'm asking students to be able to do with the text? Or if you're focusing on speaking, how am I differentiating how students are needing to produce language as they engage with the content learning? And so I know that for many of you, this is probably new. I know that I am here if you have questions. And of course, we'll give you some support and guidance when you submit that as part of your unit plan draft on Tuesday. That is it. So I hope you have a wonderful week. I look forward to looking at your unit plans and reading about your thinking in the discussion forum this week.